Welcome, Game Masters, to the last stand on the Shattered Plains. This is a video walkthrough for the 400-player epic we will be playing at Dragonsteel Nexus. My name is Andrew Ashby. Both Dragonsteel and Brotherwise have put me in charge of running this game. If you are a player, get out of here. This is going to be spoilers for the full game. If you are a Game Master, this video is for you. We're going to go through this entire packet, page by page, so we can understand how to run this game. So, real quick, this is based off of the Cosmere RPG system, and this is taking place during Words of Radiance, specifically chapters 80 through 86. So if you haven't read those, I recommend reading them before the game. It'll give you a lot of context and clues on the narrative. This game is a 3-hour game. Before the game starts, from 6 to 7, we will be doing seating. Then from 7 to 8 is Act 1, preparing for battle. Act 2 is from 8 to 9:30. And the final act, Act 3, Escape, is from 9:30 to 10. Game Masters, your resources are on our Discord channel that I am on. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me there. There are 4 High Princes that everyone is going to be seated under. Of course, we have Dalinar, but we have the other High Princes like Sebarial. You will be randomly assigned a different High Prince depending on where you're seated. And these High Princes will give you extra abilities called combat maneuvers. These are one-off abilities that your party can use to help turn the tides of battle. For example, if you are in Dalinar's army, then during this round, and you declare it before the round starts, but during this round, all damage dealt to players is cut in half. If Dalinar is your High Prince, ignore all damage this round and roll with advantage on attacks. So any party can use any of the High Prince's combat maneuvers. However, if you are in that High Prince's army, you will get an extra benefit on top. Again, these are just kind of one and done to give extra flavor to the High Princes, as well as give your players an emergency escape button if they need to really get past a difficult enemy. Let's talk about death. So in the original Cosmere RPG system, death is actually pretty rare. Players are pretty hardy, and if they fall to 0 HP, they will instead take an injury. Instead, for this game, we are offering a different rule, instant death, where if your player falls to 0 HP, their character can die and they can go get a new character sheet. This is an idea to not only fill the flavor of war, the sudden death and the grim reality of it, but also to help keep players in the game. If their character falls to 0 HP, then it becomes a problem for other players that they have to try to save them, and then that player is now dealing with an injured player for the rest of the game. So talk to your players before the game starts. See if you want to play with the instant death rules. If not, that's okay. You can go by the basic RPG rules for dropping below 0 HP. Let's talk about Act 1. Act 1 is preparing for battle. The army is marching across the Shattered Plains, and while they are marching, there is actual marching to do, also scouting, and lastly helping Navani build her archer construction project. So your players can choose between one of these 3 objectives to work. And how these objectives work throughout the whole packet is your players will choose an objective, and the objective will have kind of the requirements, the outline for it. Then it will have some complications or variations on it. And then lastly, it has the reward and what to report to your general. Let's talk about generals real quick. Generals are the table runners, people communicating what's going on in the game, and you as a game master will have access to white note cards and colored note cards. White note cards allow you to ask for help for your players, and a general will come in and give them extra supplies or even be a shard bearer at the table and help eliminate an enemy. There is also the colored cards, and this is for communication. If you need to tell your general some information, that is how you get their attention. So white is for help, colored is for reporting information. Let's give an example on the marching section. So Act 1, marching. Your squad has been given clearance to lead the march for your High Prince. Doing so will give your squad extra benefits. We'll talk about the benefits once they're earned, but how to march, okay? This is a endeavor, and we're using endeavors a lot in this adventure, so this is a system you need to know how to use. An endeavor works as so. Your players need to choose what skills they want to use to further the narrative, and if that skill is appropriate, then you will give them a value that they need to beat, a DC. Once enough players have completed their skill tests and not failed, then you can move the story on. So let's give it in context for the march. Players will march for 1 hour. They each must pass a skill test before there is blank failures. You'll see here in the packet, I do a lot of math based off of brackets, player count, and then I put a modifier on it. So this one says player count divided by 2. So if you have 6 players at your table, that means 6 divided by 2, so 3. So each must pass a skill test before there are 3 failures. That's how that sentence reads. Players can use an athletics skill test, or players can use any skills to try to pass this test as long as they are able to come up with a good reason for it. Some examples are discipline to keep ranks and march against the straining, or medicine to keep the rest of the squad hydrated. Now, for your and your players' help, in one of the handouts, there is an Endeavors handout just for Act 1, and it gives some good examples for your players to jumpstart their brains on how they can use their skills in these endeavors. So you will rip out this section and hand it to your players during Act 1 so they can see how endeavors work. So let's say your players are successful. They can all get a skill test passed before they hit the threshold of failures. Then they will get an award, and the award is Strike First. During the second act, the very first battle, if they get the Strike First benefit, then that battle is easier. And if they march for additional hours, they will get additional benefits, leading by example. This allows players at nearby tables to gain focus. So let's say your players are able to march for 1 hour, then restart the skill test and do it again, and see if they can march for a second hour. On the second hour, raise the difficulty by raising the DC needed to pass that difficulty. So they march for the second hour, great. And now they need to march for a third hour. And again, you raise that skill DC, make it tougher for them to march. If they can pass the third hour, then a nearby table will get the benefit of leading example. You will need to raise your colored card to report to your general to let them know that you have marched for 3 hours. So that's an example of how reporting works, and that's an example how endeavors work. While rolling, you can give your players opportunities to roll with plot dice. So let's say, for example, a player failed their first skill test. The next skill test has more pressure on them. Give them a plot die. This gives them a chance to redeem themselves or have consequences for another effect, a complication, or a bonus. Besides marching, players can also scout ahead of the army. To do this, everyone at the table needs to make a perception or survival test, and the DC is really high, 23. If nobody at the table gets it, no worries, there's no consequences. Instead, have them keep on rolling until somebody gets it. This is kind of to narrate how hard it is to find something. Once a player passes that, have that player roll a D20. If multiple players pass it, have the one with the highest result roll a D20. Depending on what they roll, there is a different area unlocked for them to scout. So if they roll a 1 through 5, they can scout down in the chasms. If they roll a 6 to 11, they can scout an interesting rock formation. Lastly, 12 through 18 will allow them to scout because they saw some Parshendi warriors who were spying on the army. So they're going to try to scout and ambush them. If they roll higher than 18, so 19 or 20, Shallan will join their party. Shallan will protect from any negative consequences from bad rolls. She'll protect the party, and she will use her powers to do so. Now, if you don't feel comfortable role-playing Shallan, you can completely waive that out, but I thought that was a fun little encounter, and it rewards players for rolling high. Let's scout the chasm together. The other scouting locations are going to be similar to this, but scouting the chasm will give us a good idea of how it works. First, your players need to travel to the location. This is another endeavor. Look at the approaching the location section. To arrive at the location, players must pass blank skill tests, and this says player count. So if you have 6 players, players need to pass 6 skill tests. Set the base DC needed to pass these skill tests at 10, though you could modify it depending on how you feel about that. Players must brainstorm and pitch to you how they want to approach the location. So for example, if we need to scout the chasms, how do we get down there? Well, all right, we need to collect rope, okay? Well, we need to get bridges to cross over plateaus to get into the right position. Well, we need to climb down. These are all different skills that the players can then use skill tests to see if they pass or fail. Every time they fail, there are possible consequences, and you can decide what those consequences are. There's also provided consequences, stuff like equipment failure, a rope breaking, or a bridge shifting that can hurt somebody, or an attack. Parshendi, who is not seen before, can come out and strike with a lightning attack. Again, you can change these how you want. Once the players have passed enough skill tests, they will arrive at the location. They all make a perception test, and depending on what the players roll, it unlocks different results. And they can unlock multiple results. So, down in the chasm, if somebody rolls a 6 through a 10, they're going to just find some broken and unusable gear. If they roll higher, 11 through 15, they'll find usable gear. In fact, they can put it on themselves right now and get better armor. If they roll 16 through 20, they're going to find strange corpses of Parshendis in their new storm form. This will allow 2 players to become immune to being stunned to Parshendi attacks, and we'll get into the immunity during Act 2. 20 plus, hey, you found a abandoned gem heart from a chasm fiend. That will give you an extra military maneuver. And if you roll very poorly, 0 through 5, oops, you accidentally stumbled upon a living chasm fiend, and now everyone has to run or take a little bit of damage. Now, these endeavors and these consequences should not be really detrimental to your players. We're in Act 1. This is more of a learning period for players to learn the skills and the mechanics of the game than to punish them for bad rolls. So if there is a consequence, just make it light and make it something that players can shrug off as we get ready for Act 2. We'll take a quick note because one of the things that the players can do while scouting is ambush Parshendi scouts, try to sneak around and capture them or kill them. This is not a combat encounter, so whatever your players come up with, just let them know, hey, we're not getting into combat. This is instead you're trying to either capture them real quick or finish them off with one blow. We don't want to be getting into combat just yet. Again, each section will have its own rewards, and these sections don't actually have anything to report on. All of the rewards are just table only, so you don't have to worry about reporting to your general. The last thing players can do during Act 1 is help prepare for war, help Navani build the structures for the archers. This is just a simple dice game. There's a handout right here that says prepare for war, and you'll see there are 6 sections that need to be filled. So 6 players need to roll a d6, and if there's less players, just have somebody roll an extra d6. 6 players all roll a d6 together, and they have to match the d6 onto this chart here, and if they can fill out this chart, boom, they clear a section of construction for the archers. If it doesn't work out, it completely fails and they got to retry again. For every section that they clear, take note, and when your players are done, you can then report to your general how many sections got built. That is it for Act 1. At 7:45, a general will come by and give you a warning just to make sure to get things wrapped up, because 8 o'clock we will be announcing Act 2, and there will be a little bit of a speech on the stage. All right, into Act 2. Act 2 is all about combat and war. Your players are going to be battling against the new Stormform Regals. Now, I must say that these stat blocks are not official stat blocks. Well, they kind of are. These are stat blocks given to me by Brotherwise for this game. However, we have modified them for this adventure specifically. So, they have been very kind to let me use that. I'm just letting you guys know these are modified stat blocks. So the modifications that I have put are not official. For Stormforms, I have put handy little trackers here on the sides, as well as a tactic guide. This has all their stats right here, and then it even has their special ability added here. During the very first encounter, players can get stunned by their lightning attack. This is, in the story, a very terrifying weapon that has never been seen before, and it stunned the warriors when they went up against the Parshendi. Now, they were able to shake these effects and fight, but you have the stunned effects here. A note about being stunned: players can shake this effect if they burn a focus. So the idea is the Stormform Regals will be blasting lightning as much as possible, trying to stun the players as much as possible to try to help have them burn their focus. This also rewards players for who got the ability to be invincible to being stunned. It's a nice reward for them, and it also helps kind of make these enemies more terrifying. Being able to shut down pretty much everybody's turn for that is pretty scary, especially for people who this is their first time playing. So just make sure you read the stunned status effect and how that works, and also read their tactics, how each Stormform Regal can attack. They have pretty much 2 attacks that they'll alternate between. And you have these handy trackers for tracking health, focus, and investiture, and use a pencil and erase and track as needed. So, Act 1. The armies declare to charge, and your players will charge. And a Stormform Regal will run out to meet your party. And if you didn't get the bonus in the first act for Strike First, not only will a Stormform Regal appear, but minion Stormform Regals will accompany him. Minion Stormform Regals have weaker stat blocks, less health, and are easier to die, and will do usually less damage. So they are easier for players to kill. But a regular Stormform Regal will lead the attack. And this is supposed to be kind of a shocking battle, pun intended. But it's supposed to show how dangerous these Regals are. So play it up, and if you need to, you can even tweak their HP as needed. If your players completely wipe the floor during the first turn, maybe give it a bit more HP so you can pace that battle out a bit longer and let the Stormform Regal do its thing for a turn or two. So your players then kill the first Stormform Regal. They get scared and they realize how mighty of an enemy they're going against, only to see a whole army in front of them that need to be fought. Your players then have kind of 3 options to go down. It will be stated that communication has been broken and there's chaos all around, and the player's squad has to choose what they want to do. They can either go back and hold the line, which is defend against wave upon wave of Stormform Regals and try to hold the line so the forces can regroup and reorganize. Another objective they can try to do is attack the singing Parshendi. There are singing Parshendi who are trying to summon a giant storm that will wipe out the entire army. This is the whole Parshendi's goal, is to summon the storm to kill everyone. So, Dalinar has told everyone to stop the singing, so your squad can go around and try to kill the singers. Lastly, your squad can try to rally the broken forces. There are a lot of squads without leaders running around not knowing what to do, so your squad can stand up, be leaders, get the chain of command going again, and there are benefits to that. So, give these options to your players. Let them choose what they want to do. The first 2 are combats, and rallying the troops is much more of a NPC role play experience. So if they do the 2 combat sections, then you'll go to that combat section, and we'll talk about each one, and you'll run through it. A few more notes though on combat. You have your generals to help prevent unwinnable battles. If, for example, a few players go down and it's not looking good, you can call over a general. The general will appear as a shard bearer and help kill an enemy. You can also use those high prince combat maneuvers. Very powerful maneuvers. Remind your players that they are usable. There is a handout for them that you can track how many you've used with dice in the middle. You can also reward players combat maneuvers for playing well as rewards, just kind of a way, a get out of jail option for them. Lastly, after a bit, Navani will have her archer structures lifted up, and then you will be able to rain arrows down on a specific area on the battlefield, killing enemies instantly. This is just kind of a one-time effect, just kind of like the High Princes, a one and done, just a fun little narrative thing to do. Let's go over the combat objectives. Let's do Hold the Line. Reveal the map, hold the line. At the start, there will be 3 Stormform Regal minions on the west side of the map, and put the rest of the players on the east side of the map. The players need to travel to the west side of the map and kill the minions. After the minions are dead, continue to spawn in minions equal to the total max of player count. This battle doesn't end. They will continue to go. This is to show how endless the Parshendi are. Instead, your players can end this combat at any time by retreating or going behind their own lines, getting supplies, that kind of stuff. Even summoning a shard bearer will kill the field for a time until more Parshendi show up. So this is kind of an endless encounter, something you can do to burn time. But let players know they have the chance to retreat and regroup. The other combat encounter is Kill the Singers. There is another map, There is a map, the Singer Formation map. At the start, there are 2 Parshendi, there are 2 Stormform Regals. These are the full Regals in the middle of the map, although surrounded by 30 Singing Regals. Again, take note on the stat block, Singing Regals are extremely easy to kill, and they can also be talked to if the players want to. But they are very weak because they are singing and so focused on singing. The Parshendi, these Stormform Regals, are trying to defend the Singers, and your squad is trying to kill as many Singers as possible. I wouldn't let a general be a shard bearer and make this encounter trivial, but I would allow a general to bring supplies as needed. Also, allow the players to still use their combat maneuvers and make quick work of the Stormform Regals. Now, if they have cleared this batch, they can go and clear another batch. And you will report on how many Singers have been eliminated. For every Singer they eliminate, that will again go calculating for Act 3. So when you have a break, just make sure to hold up a colored card and report how many Singers were killed. So both Hold the Lines and Slay the Singers are infinite, can go on as long as possible, as long as your players want to do those combat encounters. Lastly, Rally the Troops is a non-combat section. This is, again, another endeavor. We love endeavors. During this endeavor, players must complete the following tasks. Stabilize and rally nearby troops and inspire them to fight, and establish communication and a chain of command. To complete each task, there must be a total of player count successes, so everyone at the table has to have a success. There is no limit to the consequences. There is no limit to failures. However, every failure will have a consequence and possibly make it harder for your players. It can also have consequences to their characters, as in they might take damage or lose focus. Now, if that's all not enough, there are 2 special missions: Save a Shard Bearer and Escort a Shard Bearer. This is just some fun extra stuff if time is allowing and your players want to try something interesting. Save a Shard Bearer, there is a map provided, and the Shard Bearer is trapped under a bunch of ropes by Parshendi Stormform Regals. And the players have to go and free the Shard Bearer before his armor is broken. If the armor is broken, the Shard Bearer is killed. The Stormform Regal could try to pick up the Shard Blade and attack the players. That could be a TPK if dice don't roll well. So do be careful about that. Players might also get their hands on a Shard Blade, which would be very interesting. Since this is about the end of the encounter, I wouldn't be opposed to awarding that to a player if they fail successfully. Escort a Shard Bearer. This is to watch a Shard Bearer in full power mow down enemy Stormform Regals. It will go quickly from one Regal to another, just wiping them out, and the player's job is just trying to keep the Regals off of them and slowing them down. The cool thing about escorting a Shard Bearer is you can give the players the chance to choose who the Shard Bearer attacks next, kind of giving the Shard Bearer orders. So the players can kind of feel the power of what a Shard Bearer is. After an hour and a half, we are getting to the 9:30 mark, and we will make an announcement and go to Act 3. Everything done in Act 1 and 2 will be calculated to give us a final countdown timer for Act 3. At the maximum, that timer will be 30 minutes, and at the very minimum, that timer might only be 10 minutes. It depends on how well the players do. From our rough calculations, we're expecting that timer to be anywhere to be between 15 to 25 minutes, giving tables time to escape. But we'll only be able to see during the game how everyone's games have played out. So, Act 3, a countdown timer will start. Then your players have to do one last endeavor to escape the Shattered Plains and get onto the Oath Gate. So there are 3 locations your players have to escape, and there is a handy handout for this. So the 3 locations are the battlefield, the temporary war camps, and then the Oath Gate itself. These are endeavors, and your players, again, will have to choose what skills they want to use to help push their squad past that location. In each area, if a player rolls poorly on an endeavor or rolls a complication, there is a chart. You'll see these charts have a lot of different options on different complications or consequences on either failed tests or complications, and you can either choose to roll on the chart or you can choose which penalty the players take. These penalties are pretty severe, from taking damage to undoing previous failed saves to possibly death. During Act 3 is the time we could really kind of cut loose and kill players, especially in the 3rd location, the Oath Gate location. This is where the storm is at its strongest. It's almost about to descend on all the players, and so killing players outright during the 3rd location is understandable in the narrative. It doesn't feel too good, though, to die in the 1st or the 2nd location, because then you're going to be sitting there for 10 to 20 minutes while the rest of the players have the final act of moment. So if you do want to kill your players, wait until that final location and then be merciless if you want to. And either the countdown timer will end or the players will all have made it to the Oath Gate. At that point, we will make the announcement that the Oath Gate has been activated and everyone who has made it there will be safe and is saved. After that, the game is over. Well done, Game Masters. We will then take your report cards and we will get results from each table. We're going to give out rewards based off of who died the most, who killed the most Parshendi, who did the most damage, and who took the most damage. We'll have some fun little things that we're going to give prizes out for. Well, that is the last stand on the Shattered Plains. This has been quite an adventure to write. It's been an honor. If any of you guys have any questions, hit me up in the Discord. I'm going to be there all next week. Except for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I'm going to be at the event itself, and the chances of me checking Discord are pretty low. I will be in the game room, though, pretty much all 3 days, so if you have any personal questions, find me. Important note for Game Masters, make sure to save a table in the seating spot. This is again on the Discord. Make sure to save a table. If you have friends you want to play with, make sure they save their spots underneath you. It'll be kind of hard day of. We're going to have to try to find where to put everyone. And so if you already have a table saved, that's going to save us a whole big headache. I'm super excited to play this game with you. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Without Game Masters, this is impossible. Maps and handouts and a full printed packet will be provided. If you need to bring dice, miniatures, or tokens for this game, that is on you to bring that. There will also be writing utensils and character sheets for all the players. Thank you, and I can't wait to see you at Dragonsteel Nexus.